Hey everyone, Brandon and Brady here, and today we're going to talk to you about a technique in the bench press that we see done incorrectly more often than correctly, especially in those individuals who have a bigger bench press arc. What we're talking about today is how individuals actually use their scapula and their lats, but we're really going to be focusing on the scapular movement here, and we're going to be talking about how to effectively use your scapula as opposed to what you might currently be doing. Brady, go ahead. What we're talking about here is the idea of scapular depression versus retraction. Now, and they might seem very similar, and to be honest, they are. But what we find is that when people go too far to the retraction side, especially on a bench press, we end up seeing this big hike in the scapula, and they end up actually elevating their scapula to their ears, especially for those individuals who are higher up on their traps in a bigger bench press arch. Go ahead and put your hands up, Brady. Show the fault. This would be a massive fault. Now, if you see an individual who has bent elbows in the bench press, we can almost assume that this is a primary cause. It may or may not be, but that is definitely something to look for when assessing someone's technique. If they take the bar out and they hold it something like this, it looks a little bit unhinged, it's almost always going to be followed by a broken position in the shoulder and the scapula up to the ear. Now, what we're looking for is more of a scapular depression and not necessarily a huge retraction. Show that, Brady. It's a little hard to get into position without a barbell. But the depression is Brady actually pulling his scapula under him. Not so much to get those elbows in front of the barbell, but enough to seat that scapula so the shoulder is in the correct position and not winged out. Now, if we get this winging out effect or this bent elbow and this elevated scapula, that's most commonly going to be followed by the elbows excessively flaring in the bench press. Now, for all of you guys who maybe miss at 3/4 of the way up in the bench press, or if you're struggling with shoulder issues, this is definitely something that you're going to want to address and make sure that you're not doing incorrectly. Anything you'd like to add, Brady?
Yeah, that scapular depression is going to give you a much better control of the shoulder than just retraction. And we want to note that we're doing both still. We are getting some scapular retraction, but we also want that depression of pulling those shoulder blades down.
Yep. We don't want to be so high up on the traps here that we get stuck in this position. Instead, bring it down. It's almost like flaring the lats out to a certain degree, to kind of think about that. We don't necessarily want to flare the lats out and protract the scapula, but that's kind of the difference between those two extremes.
Yeah, a good cue that works for a lot of people is to think about taking your shoulder blades and putting them in the opposite back pocket, which you're not going to achieve by just squeezing them together. You got to bring them down.
So we're not saying scapular retraction is bad. We're saying that the individuals who do it wrong could benefit from doing it a little better, and we tend to think of that as scapular depression versus retraction. All right, guys, as always, thank you for watching. Brandon and Brady signing out.